you're willing to take
sure.
some questions?
Yeah.
So, if you'll please wait for the microphone. I see our Sergeant at Arms going around the room. Let's start actually over here. I think Olympia, please ask your question.
Yes, thank you so much for the presentation today. I was one of the individuals in the Northridge earthquake.
Yes.
At 4:31 in the morning, there was an earthquake, and my sisters and I escaped the collapsing building. And we're very fortunate because one of my class members died. And it was very, very difficult because at that moment in time, I lost everything I owned. But the good news is I was 17, so I didn't own much. But in any case, what kept me through is the fact that I still had the ability to gain and earn my bachelor's degree in mathematics and later my master's degree in mathematics. So that was something that allowed me to push through the tragedy and go for that degree. So I echo what you are saying, which is the higher education actually contributes the most to the economy. My question for you is this. How does your organization work with, let's say, FEMA or other organizations? So when catastrophes like that occur in the future, the people who have been displaced will have a home again.
My company, and I didn't want to say much about it because I didn't want this to be an advertisement for a private company, but I'm the chairman of a company called CityView, which I founded in 2000, which aggregates institutional capital like CalPERS and Los Angeles Retirement System and Texas teachers and Illinois teachers. They all have investment programs. And we convert their investments into returns in housing. That is to say, we build housing across the country with that investment capital. So we are not in the public business, we're not in the government subsidy business, we build market homes, but in urban areas. Our focus is in cities. Now, having said that, our company was just awarded, along with a New York partner, a $200 million commitment to build housing in New York after Hurricane Sandy. So we're going to be building in the destroyed areas where Sandy actually had impact and in the surrounding neighborhoods to shore up those neighborhoods. With their $200 million, we will invest as equity in partnerships to build housing, and the result will be to shore up those neighborhoods. So while we're officially, not in the disaster recovery business, we can be helpful in cases like that, and it is an important way to use capital that if we manage it properly, will generate returns and enhance those retirement systems and the pensioners that are part of it. I want to make sure I get Mr. Shaw over here because I promised him earlier I would take a question, but we'll come here first.
Let's go with Dave,
right.
President Dave first, and then we'll get a mic over here, please.
Okay.
Mr. Secretary, thanks a lot. Having a daughter at USC and that Gateway project, I can understand student housing needs, so thank you for that.
Gateway is a project just across from USC, just down the street from us, which opened before us.
Yes, right.
Right. This is the question, if you're able to comment, reference the FHFA and your comments on Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and the housing. Could you comment, or do you have knowledge on what the phantom housing situation is that we hear about? That there's still a lot of foreclosure houses in the pipeline is creating some shortage of housing availability for sale, or if you know of or can comment.
Well, the shadow housing stock has been an immense problem for the country. The fact that the banks had foreclosed on the amount that they did, and then unlike in previous cases in the 1980s and the savings and loans crisis and others, the banks simply didn't put it out. It was held out there, and so that's where the word shadow came from. No one knew exactly what the price was, but it was the competition to builders wanting to build new stock. So builders basically held back because they didn't know how much there was out there. They didn't know when it was going to be released on the market, and they didn't know what the price would be. So the real competition for builders was not other builders, as is normally the case. It was the shadow stock. And as a result, they just kept their powder dry for a very, very long time. I would say there's a lot of aspects of this recovery that we did not handle well as a country. And the worst of it was in the housing sector. We overcompensated in terms of credit and lending so that people cannot get credit for mortgages in many, many places. Down payment requirements are way up. And as a result, people are not able to buy who ordinarily would. Now, granted, we went too far, and it's part of what got us into trouble. But the compensation, the pendulum has swung so far that housing is slow in recovering, and as a result, the national recovery has been flat because housing plays that important role. My sense now, to answer your question, is that the banks have found ways to begin to put stock out. I see a lot of evidence that that's happening. And most of the estimates I've seen show that a good deal, a high percentage of the foreclosed stock is moving through the system, and builders are returning to the marketplace now. Construction levels will be up, employment levels will be up as the housing sector comes back to the table. Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a comment and then ask a question. I don't think you've been adequately thanked, and I don't think most people know why in Los Angeles during the earthquake we did not suffer as they have in Sandy and in New Orleans. And a large part of the reason that we didn't, a large part of the reason that we were able to deal with those issues so promptly was because of this man, Secretary Cisneros. I was president of the Apartment Association, and I was confronted with city officials with 25,000 people that couldn't be put in housing. Secretary Cisneros arrived. He called a small group of people together. I was one of them. We made suggestions, and he implemented them. And he implemented them instantly because of his strong relationship with the president, because of his vast knowledge of the types of problems we dealt with. And as a consequence, we recovered from that much more quickly than we would have. And I want to take this opportunity to thank you for what you did.
I'm so glad I directed the microphone to you.
You can settle up with me afterwards. But the question is, the Wall Street Journal article yesterday seemed to take a position that was contrary to what it seemed to indicate was your position. And I have such a high regard for you.
Yeah.
I would like you to comment on that.
There's a fellow named Peter Wallison who works at, I think, American Enterprise Institute. Maybe it's a Cato Institute. It's one of the conservative think tanks who takes the position that the government should not be involved in securitization at all. It's really, there's three kind of positions. One is it ought to be the government doing it all. Then there is the government should not be involved at all. And then there is this kind of middle ground that we've staked out. And here's the issue. If the government is not involved at all, then the private sector runs the securitization process. It ends up costing more, so we lose some ability to do mortgages at reasonable rates. In other words, people are going to end up with multiple percentage points, right, for mortgage transactions. Number two, when the inevitable recessions do occur, and there are regular reoccurrence in American society, the private sector withdraws, and there's nothing to shore up the system. There's nothing to continue bringing capital in, like Fannie and Freddie did in the apartment sector, particularly during this recession. And thirdly, and most importantly, the 30-year mortgage, fixed-rate mortgage, is the hardest mortgage for the private sector to do, but it's the most important to people. So if we create a system where you can't get a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage, we're going to take a whole lot of people out of the homeownership equation. So those are the three reasons why we feel there needs to be what we're calling a government guarantee or insurance program. Not the government involved directly, but a small fee attached to every transaction that goes into a fund so that if we ever get into a position where we need catastrophic involvement, it's not the taxpayer, but it's that fund that's able to step in. So that's the Peter Wallison argument versus the one that this commission has taken.
Thank you.
We've got time for one last question. Gary Higgins.
Largely because of the high cost of housing in California.
Correct.
My girlfriend is encouraging me to look at investment outside of California, and specifically in Texas, and even more specifically in Dallas. From an investment perspective, from your point of view, good idea, bad idea.
Investment advice.
Well,
San Antonio.
the only thing I could say is better than Dallas is San Antonio. Now, here's what I would say. Texas is awash in housing, and it's because there are low barriers to entry. So it's not the best investment because you're not going to get the price appreciation because it's easy to reproduce. Okay? So as a strict economic proposition, I mean, we need the housing, and I'd love to see more of it, but as a strict economic proposition, it's not where you're going to get the greatest return on an investment. Now, my own contention, and we're building a lot in California, is that because there are barriers to entry, because it is scarce, you can command a price appreciation, and you just have to choose carefully where you do it. We have found at CityView that our strategy of building in the cities, we're building something called the Barker Block over here. Some of you may know where that is, the old Barker Furniture Company. And it's the best-selling project in downtown Los Angeles, lofts downtown. Right? We also are involved in a project called Tennessee Lofts off Olympic, another one called Glencoe in the marina, and multiples in the San Fernando Valley, and they have been smashing economic successes. So if you pick right and have a strategy, you can make money in California and in housing people in California. And Lord knows it's going to continue to be needed going forward. Anywhere you build on the coasts, yes. Boston, New York, Washington, through Charlotte, Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, we're doing land office business in San Francisco, beautiful projects in San Francisco and the Bay Area. Los Angeles, San Diego is hard to build in. They don't have hardly any land in the city that you can aggregate anymore. But this is a bi-coastal nation now, and you just almost can't go wrong in building housing for a growing nation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I hate to say this, but it's a fellow Texan and from Houston, and I'm actually from Tri-Coast. In honor of your presentation today, Friday, March 8th, a $1,000 donation has been made in your name to LA5's Scholarship Fund to help disadvantaged youth in LA through LA.